What's up, everybody? It's time for another piece of ash. This is my weekly show where I sit and take questions from you guys in the chat, the mailbag, and usually talk about sort of relevant current events. So yeah, let's jump into the title of this. We're going to talk about two things today. First, we're going to really briefly talk about what's up, everybody. It's time for the crap that's been going on YouTube. Forgot to mute my laptop there. And all over the place, talking about a lawsuit against GW for $62.5 million. If you were alive and on the internet in the last week, basically in the last 7 days, you will have seen the blurbs everywhere for news about some kind of lawsuit. And I don't want to give it too much time because I'm sick of it. It's sensationalism. My inbox blew up with questions about it. I had all kinds of people post stuff about it on my page, and I don't want to waste more time than the first 5 minutes of this video talking about it. It's Crackpot lawsuit, and it's that for a bunch of different reasons. But the thrust of and there's like too many just basic problems with it as a lawsuit, such as the fact that the person filing the lawsuit doesn't own any of the intellectual properties that they're filing intellectual property claims about, and all kinds of just fundamental things wrong with it that make it a crackpot lawsuit. But that's not actually the problem I have with it. Crackpot lawsuits get filed all the time in the United States. It's a litigious society, and that's the right of every citizen to take to civil court claims against other people. The fact is that it's been given way more time than it deserves in the name of sensationalism. And that's the problem that I have, is that it's a sensationalist topic. It doesn't have anything to do with actual wargaming. It has to do with business. And it got way more attention than it deserved. And the big problem with that is that there's real people involved in that. It's a real filing. There's real people's names being read out loud on the internet. And imagine if that was you. It just feels like a completely unethical thing to do, to sensationalize something like that. And I'm sick of it. So please stop. If you agree with me, just stop watching those videos, stop reading those articles, and walk away from it. Wash your hands with that kind of like just crass sensationalism, because I think it's terrible. And it doesn't have anything to add to the actual wargaming market. So I think things that are newsworthy are things like cool toy soldiers, and that's why the second half of this and the bulk of this video is going to be made up of the new Necromunda, which got dropped on us this week. It's super exciting. Andy Hoare did a whole bunch of talking about it this past weekend at Warhammer World, and we got to see some pictures of it. If you haven't seen the new Necromunda photos, they look pretty rad. That dude's got a chain axe that is a skull with a mohawk. Just gonna let that sink in for a second. It's a skull with a mohawk, and that's great. All these have also been shown off at Warhammer World to be multi-part plastics. So two different figures for multi-part plastic kits for the Goliath and the Escher have been shown off. So you can see they have like actual like Necromunda E bases. The Goliath are on 32mm bases. The Escher on 25mm bases. And they look great. They capture the essence of Necromunda, that Mad Max, wearing pelts, having like crazy whatever, themes basically for each of the factions. Andy talked a little bit about what's coming up for it. They want to have it out by the end of this year. Apparently it's always been in the works to come out the end of this year, so that's really exciting. They're having another specialist game, rebranded and relaunched by the end of the year. That it's going to have multi-part plastics right out of the box, going to make all the gangers is going to be great. And I'm just as excited for this as I was for Blood Bowl, so expect to see lots more about it in the future, because I think this is a really cool opportunity for one thing, and also a really cool blast from the past coming back. Other things they've talked about is they're also going to be adding in stuff like the new stat lines from 40k. So it's going to be almost more compatible with the new 40k than it is necessarily things like Shadow Armageddon. And that's a double-edged sword. People that really like the old Necromunda, obviously you still have the old Necromunda. You can play with all these new figures. There will be more, I think, cross-pollination between the new Necromunda, it looks like, and the new 40k than there will necessarily between Shadow Armageddon and the old Necromunda, which is interesting because it shows how those two studios don't necessarily talk to each other that much, and how one thing might not be the same as the other thing. What's really exciting about it, and the thing I'm most excited about, is that apparently it has alternating activations. This will be the first time in a GW skirmish game that I can think of, apart from Epic, where you're activating whole units, that there's been an alternating activation system in a specialist game. I think Lord of the Rings has a combined game turn, but Lord of the Rings, War of the Ring actually had alternating activations, if I remember correctly. I might be actually remembering that wrong. That might not be the case. But the idea of having a model go, another model go back and forth, and having like an integrated alternating activation game turn, I think sounds really, really cool. Andy's been in the studio for, wow, geez, a very long time. And he was around for a lot of those original specialist games as well. So I have great faith in him to be able to capture what was great about the old Necromunda and translate it. And if these models are, of course, any indication, you've got a great lot of like upcoming, hopefully like fun like model ideas and things that we can build and paint coming up in the near future. I do really hope that they keep some of the themes the same. Like, I would love to see some of the funny stuff sort of like come up in the game. Like, for instance, the stuff like the in-between encounters that can happen with your settlements. They can happen with your when you're going out to like work your territories, where things can happen. Like a juvie can just join your gang. You can get bad info or good info from people. You get tips and stuff. And then I really be excited if they keep the arbitrator system, which was actually something from Outlanders, where you can get outlawed and you can have the arbitrator who actually runs the campaign, enforcer teams, like all that stuff, all the cops and arbor stuff that made it a great game, because that gave it personality. And I'm really hoping that apart from just having fantastic models, it has that kind of like a hook to keep playing the game too. So that's pretty much the newest, most exciting stuff to be happening in the world of wargaming. So we're gonna jump into. Actually, I got one more. I can't just show like some of them. I should show all of the miniatures as opposed to showing the miniatures. So let's just show you the last Escher model as well. Here she is. That was a pistol girl, and this is the auto rifle with the sweet mohawk and bandana on her face too. So there's lots of stuff coming up. The sort of like, I think the fun thing is going to be as they tease things out, just seeing what the possibilities are on the plastic sprues too. So I'm going to jump into the mailbag real fast and start answering some questions, so we can get some new questions going in the chat, and then we'll jump in and answer those too, and we'll do our usual jam of asking questions and getting answers from the Ash. So here, let's start off with the mailbag. Question the first is from James, and he asks, as this thing loads in front of me, hey Ash, I want to start by saying thanks for great content. I really enjoy the channel. I have a couple questions. How is your game coming along, and when can we expect it to come out? Well, that's interesting, because I've actually been talking about my game behind the scenes a whole bunch with a whole bunch of different people. And we're working on the nuts and bolts of actually like the release schedule and the release month. I've got a draft, like a marketing draft written up, and I've been talking to the marketing manager at Osprey about how it's going to look. But I don't want to say too much until it's actually in stone, because I don't know what the plan is. I do know I'll be at Adepticon again next year, and I should be demoing my game there. So you'll be able to expect to see sort of like a in public demonstration of it, but you'll see videos starting in January, all through until it gets released, of like the design process and all that stuff too. So right now, what's happening behind the scenes is I'm working with some really talented people about having terrain for the game. So there's going to be some terrain specific stuff that you need, and you can make it yourself, or there'll be some cool MDF kit options. They're going to be available, things like tokens, just little bits and pieces that let you personalize what you're doing. And of course, the reason I want that to be done before we start doing things like the photography for the book is that stuff you can see it actually in the pages of the book and stuff too. So that's all going to happen. Then actual photography, talking to people about different kinds of artists, because I want the book to look a certain way. And yeah, I mean, the book's done. It's written. It's all the stuff that goes, like, it's funny because I think that's like one of those missing things that people don't realize when it comes to writing a game book, is just how many steps after writing the game there are to actually have it go to the printers and then get printed and finished and stuff. It's a lot of moving pieces, and we're working on those right now. We're focusing on that stuff before the stuff actually gets like finalized and how it looks and things too. So that's where that's at. You will see it if you are on the Osprey mailing list and you want to see more info about it. It'll be in this year's Osprey catalog. So the upcoming stuff catalog for next year, you'll get to see a blurb about it in there, which I hope you like. What's my next question? Karn's left bicep asks, New Necromunda, holy crap, talk. Well, I just did. Kyle says, what was just in your awesome country visiting Toronto and Sault Ste. Marie? You went to Toronto and the Sioux? That's such a weird combination. Why must Ontario always remind you with signs that you were in the province? No Canadian gave a good answer. Maybe you will. Probably because, so I'm going to give like a serious answer to what's probably a funny question that you don't expect a serious answer to. But the actual like most likely reason for that is that there's so many unmarked borders between provinces. Like the provinces are so big, you could easily cross from one province to another, like rurally, and not know where you are. And they're so big across too that like sometimes you just need to know what province you're in. And that would be my reason, I guess, why. Because laws can even change, taxes can change. The consumer needs to be notified, the motorist needs to be notified. Because just like in states, provinces have all kinds of different regulations, and like you might need something in one you don't have to have in the other, and so you need to know from a legal standpoint. The province might actually be required to tell you those things as part of you traveling through it. The Void asks, we're getting Malifaux going to my city with a small group to start. Is it worthwhile becoming a henchman? Same question for Workhorse. Well, they're very different programs. The henchman program, I find it's not as like, I don't know. I guess it's not organized, but like what I was gonna say is compared to the Warcore program, the Warcore program is actually like relatively hard to get into, and quite well organized when it comes to like the way that you submit things and the way things work, because everything goes to the ITS system for reporting. The henchman system tends to be a lot of like emailing, and you get a validation code, and then you email back with that validation code, and like there's a web applet for it all, and it's okay, but it's not as user friendly, I find, as the Workcore one is. But all for either side, you don't have to be a Workcore or a henchman to order the kits. So like, don't feel like you have to wait to become either of those things before you start running events and tournaments and stuff, because you can just go buy all the kits for those tournaments and do it like ready to go without having to like wait for someone to give you like an official stamp. So I wouldn't bother. I would just if you're excited about it and it picks up, then maybe like think about getting like an official status, getting sanctions, stuff like that. But until that happens, like just run events and have a good time, because that's 9 times out of 10 that's all people want. And if you do it using like the actual P kits for the game, then they feel like they're in something official, and away you go. Like you're doing it already. And if you enjoy doing it without being any kind of like official thing, then that means it's right for you. You know, if you don't need to have the validation or like the sort of like rubber stamp of being in some kind of official program and you really enjoy it, then go get it. But if you want that and you don't enjoy doing it, you know what I mean? Like there's no point. So I think it's a try before you buy kind of thing. Don't bother signing up until you've actually done some of the work. Just to see if you like doing it. Because if you don't enjoy it, then don't bother. I'm going to jump over to the chat and say hi to everybody. We got Isaac Neal, Anthony Lee's here, Patrick Moses here, Corey's here, Urza001's here, Ben the Grand Perpa Nurgle's here, Quinn's here, CJ Phoenix is here, Frost001's here, Ronnie Sugden's here, John Suter's here, Matt Sears is here, Irvin's here, Andy Hart's here. Some great comments in the chat right now, which I shouldn't repeat. Torvin's here. I'm trying to say the same one twice. Rob Villeneuve's here. Tobex is here. BF Dud is here. Dude, Tim Barry's here. And we're actually getting into questions now. Let's just actually jump into some questions. Have you seen the Hero Forge website? It's an online app that lets you design a 30mm miniature and then print it out in shapeways. Single figure in white plastic's like $30 USD. Yeah, Hero Forge has been around for a while, and have been really popular with like the RPG circuit of guys who, folks who want to have, their character, their specific, like, he's this race, he's armed this way, he's wearing this clothing. They want that unique class or character printed off as a miniature so they can use it in their RPG games. And I think it's super cool. It's a really neat idea. The only issue I have with it is that it has the problem that most 3D designed modular things have, where you need to design so many permutations to get it to look natural. They all tend to look like World of Warcraft models or I get 3D models. You know what I mean? They're all very bulky because the joints need to always all line up. Their weapons are all very like almost like bolted onto their hands or their wrists or stuff like that. And the dimensions, no matter what race they are, it tends to be picking the race for your character gives you like identifying features like pointy ears or whatever. They don't necessarily change their dimensions in a satisfying way. Your character spits out looking like your unique World of Warcraft character, not your unique like, oh, this is so cool, it was sculpted by somebody character. And I think that's super cool that like it's available and it's online and it's really ambitious. But I think that it's one of those things that right now, I don't know if I'd necessarily do it, but I think that given enough time as the sculptors go in and they provide more options and there's more like, because I could see it in the future being like you could pose them how, like just the technology is going to make it so that you can do whatever you want to do. So those crazy 3D sculpts that you see online, you can literally do anything. Like you can have like the crazy poses, like the fireball chucking, like whatever it is you want your hero to be doing, you can actually have designed into the miniature. Based on the fact that the website will evolve and what the content of like the thing is will evolve and how you can pose it and design it before it goes off to be printed will evolve. And yeah, I think it's really exciting. So is it where I'd want it to be to do it myself? Probably not, but is it going to get there at some point? I'm sure it will, and it's just going to get more and more impressive. Marius says, late as usual. Can't wait for the new Necromunda. I'm going to try it out, even if I have to visit friends a few hundred kilometers away to play. That's always the way. Quinn Murphy says, Ash, why are you so savage to Steve on his channel? Oh, you should see him off camera. He's 10 times worse. It's usually he's baited me like to be savage off camera. And also he was my third best work wife. So we have a special relationship going forward, I guess. But yeah, no, it's not savage. It's just love. It's how men express love for each other in that like that brotherly way, which usually involves punching and wrestling and throwing each other downstairs when we're younger, and it just evolves into like a certain level of savagery as we get older. Patrick Camosa says, sadly only 2 gangs at launch. Hope they will release it faster than the Blood Bowl teams. I'm actually okay if it takes a while for them to come out, because it's not like there aren't a million Necromunda miniatures out there already that people could just play if they want to play the other gangs, and I'd rather they were right than fast. I can wait for my miniatures. If it means, especially if there's only 2 gangs on release, it means I have time to actually paint them both before the new ones come in. And Blood Bowl, I thought, almost came out too fast for me to catch up with. Like, I hadn't even painted my humans and my dwarves, or my orcs, before like the dwarves started escaping, right? Like all this other stuff started piling on top of it, and I didn't have anything done. But if it's the same quality as that, and if it's all multi-part posable, and of course it's always going to be compatible with the rest of the 40k range, if it's in roughly the same scale, then it's going to be fabulous. It's going to be a new renaissance of skirmish wargaming for 40k. Paul Vidal says, tried to watch this on my phone and I only got the standby screen, switched to computer and it worked. Anybody know what it's about? Just close your app and refresh it. That's your app not having the ability to like fetch a refresh. So what happens is it's showing you the last thing that was available, and when it goes live you have to refresh it. And what I usually do is I actually close the app down completely. So I like double click my iPhone and swipe the app up so it turns off and turns back on. And it'll go and fetch new data. That's usually what it means. Descent says, are you going to buy a Gabriel Angelos mini for your Blood Ravens? Not the one from Forge World. I actually had this conversation with somebody online who asked me about that with my last battle report I put up for the Gabriel Angelos Forge World. Or sorry, it was my battle report where I played against Chaos? Yeah, it was where I played Chaos. It was where I played Ronnie. It was... it's a bit derpy-faced. I feel bad for saying that, because I normally love the character models that Forge World does. The Gabriel Angelos model, his face just looks like it's melted. Like, he looks like he's wearing like a rubber mask. And if I'm going to pay $100 for a miniature, Canadian, because that's what it's going to be. It's 45 pounds. It'd be $100 for me to get it shipped to Canada. Yeah, I got to like the miniature. You know what I mean? Like I gotta love the miniature. To pay $100 for a single model, I have to love the miniature. We're talking like almost Primarch town at that point. You know what I mean? And for that Gabriel Angelos model, I'm not in love with it. I like it, but I'm not in love with it. I like the fact that they did him. I'm not a big fan of the actual sculpt. And it's hard for me to say that because I don't usually say those things. BF Dud. I don't know if it's BFD HUD or BF Dud. I'm just trying my best here with the internet acronyms. What are your thoughts on the Mortarion model? I really like him. It's funny, when the leaked picture came out online, it was super washed out by whatever the flash or the camera settings were on that camera, and he looked like he was in this like pastel green with like all pinks on him and stuff. And he still has those tones on him, but he's a lot grittier when you see the actual picture of the miniature. I love the sculpt. It's very different from the 90s version of Mortarion, because the previous versions of Mortarion we've seen have all been from Epic. So the old epic Mortarion was literally like a Grim Reaper. He had angel wings, and he was in like he was death. He was literally death. He was in a black cloak. You couldn't see his face. He had like a big scythe, and had big like Grim Reaper wings. And so it's a really big departure from that. But then, to be fair, it's also a really big departure from the Magnus the Red miniature from Epic, where he's literally like, he looks like a big weird Care Bear, like with like a thing over his head. He's got like a dumpy belly, and he's like, yeah, like let me see if I can find the old Epic. You know what? This would be fun to do. Let's see if I can find Epic Mortarion, because if I do, then yeah, here we go. So you guys can actually see what he looks like. And then you can say for yourselves, what do I think this guy is? Because there's a ton of different sort of like versions of these guys, but these ones in particular, and even Epic Angron. Like I'll show you Epic Angron as well, and he's not really what you'd think of as Angron today. But the Demon Primarchs all had miniatures back then. Oh my god, I just found the one for Magnus the Red, and it's amazing. I forgot how great it was. I can't find a big one of... I'm trying to find a big one of Fulgrim right now, and unfortunately the only one I can find is kind of little. Let me see if I can find a bigger one, because it's not going to show up great on the screen if it pops up really little. I'll get you started with these ones though. Here you go. Yeah, because I think what's weirding people out about him in particular is he's such a big change from the source material that we kind of know of, I guess, as hobbyists. And I think that's okay. I just think that like for the people that were expecting one thing, they got something else. And he's actually quite different from the one from whatchamacallit, from the Forge World like Horus Heresy version. You know, I think people weren't expecting that either. They were even expecting something closer to that. So yeah, here's the Epic one that you guys can see, because this is the one this is what everyone's kind of like comparing him to. And he's the Angel of Death, right? He's just this like winged, cowled sort of like Grim Reaper figure, and he's not what you think. You know, he's not what you think of, I guess, as Mortarion. And then it's funny because nobody lost their mind over what's his face, over Magnus, but the Magnus one is way different, like super different. This is Magnus the Red, so like yeah, compare Magnus the Red, the plastic 40k model, to this guy, and is not exactly the same style, is it? At all. And then you've got Angron, and Angron's literally just a Bloodthirster. Like, if you look at Angron, he's not even a Bloodthirster. He's almost like, he looks like an epic Balrog. Let me see if I can find Angron real fast. I can't, unfortunately, find a big enough, like, I can find the actual picture, but it's like, it's so little, it's not going to show up very well. But here's Angron. Yeah, like, so he's just a Balrog, really, with a sword. And that gives you an idea of what people, I think, are comparing him to. That is not. I don't say it's not going over well, but it's not what people thought it was going to look like, and so people are kind of having a hard time with it. Yeah, no, I can't find a big enough one. The ones of Fulgrim are all way too small. Let me just see if I can find Epic Fulgrim. I'm just gonna actually Google it separately, because all the Primarchs showed up when I pulled up the first one. Oh, here we go. This isn't the official GW one, but you can see the miniature here. This is somebody's from Warmania. Whoever you are in Warmania, good job painting this. I'm sorry I'm stealing this picture of your thing. It's not the one from the studio, because the other ones are all from the old White Dwarf article, but these guys. Let me see if I can just pull this up for you. But here's the old Fulgrim. And I think the Fulgrim is actually, it's funny, because the Fulgrim is in the book from Horus Heresy, where Fulgrim turns into this. It's exactly like the epic miniature. Like, the guy that wrote that story, where I think it's the one where he's hanging out with, oh geez, what's his name? He's hanging out with somebody from the Iron Warriors. He's hanging out with Petarabo. And yeah, he turns into this. And like, literally, the description of him like transforming into the Demon Primarch, he turns into this miniature. Like, they describe it almost perfectly. He's just like this big snake-bodied, like multi-armed, weird keeper of secrets, basically. So yeah, so I think the problem is that's where these Primarchs are being compared to, is kind of like what our expectations of them are. And so that's kind of that's where it's gone. That's where it's gone. What else we got in here for questions? On an anime note, Ash, have you looked at Relic Knights 2.0 at all? I have not, unfortunately. I just haven't. It's not been on my radar. They were the guys at Soda Pop had Anima Tactics towards the end. And that was like the last I really looked at Soda Pop. I haven't looked at them since. Have you heard whether or not the Necromunda stuff is going to be monopose or multi-part plastic? Anthony Lee's asking. It's all multi-part plastic. It's been confirmed, and those models are clearly multi-part. Ash, do you think... Sorry, John Cedar says, Ash, do you think they'll add in some new gangs or quasi-Warhammer factions in the edition? I hope not, to be honest with you. Shadow War is a great skirmish 40k. Like, I really like that Shadow War is, like, a step further from Kill Teams or Combat Patrol. Whereas... the stuff for Necromunda, I always felt I loved it because it was its own world. It was the soft underbelly of the Imperium, and it made guns that you think of as crap in 40k seem dangerous. Like stub pistols are dangerous, las pistols are dangerous. So I say the same thing that I love about the Inquisitor trilogy, the Eisenhorn trilogy, is he's this like old Inquisitor lord, and his favorite weapon at the time when you first meet him is this like Scipio naval pistol. It's just like a huge 45 basically. But the reason he loves it is like this ganger that was in his warband like scrimshawed like a rose with like a ruby blood drop into the handles, and like it just made him happy because his friend made it for him. And I like that. I like the intimacy of the game if it's focused on a place, a world, humanity. If you try and cram too much into it, it turns into, what is it? Turns into episode 1 of The Phantom Menace. Right? Like, don't cram too much stuff in there. Just keep it simple. Keep it a simple story. One good story is better than trying to do 10 million things and answer 10 million questions. Who else we got here? Anthony Lee, Kareth, Kelly Merrill saying hi, everybody. Pride St. Clair says, what's the name of the game? Are you talking about my game? It's called Last Days. Dan Harris says hi. Malev says, you said the word artist at the same time I said artists on Facebook on a completely unrelated post. But the universe aligned for a mere moment and short-circuited my brain. There was a line from a movie, and now I'm going to totally date myself, but there's a movie called Repo Man. And there's this one moment where this actor, he's this crusty old actor, he played one of the crew in Alien. I can't remember his name for the life of me right now. He died recently. He's a fantastic character actor. But he's looking at he's looking at Emilio Estevez and Charlie Sheen, and he's like, sometimes someone will say shrimp or plate of shrimp, and you're thinking about a plate of shrimp, and the two of them are just like, and it's like this really weird deep moment in Repo Man. It's one of my favorite things ever in film. You're thinking about a plate of shrimp, and somebody says shrimp or plate of shrimp. The universe aligns. Dorky Dad says, I'd like to play a less RPG Inquisitor. I think the Necromunda will fit. Haven't done any 40k in many years, close to 10. Definitely. If you're looking for a good blend of, well, the previous editions, I can't speak for this edition because it's not out yet. But Necromunda has always been about feeling like you are the leader of a gang. And all the things that go into that. You have to manage your territory. Where does your gang get its money from? How do they deal with the law? The law is even a part of it. Like there's always stuff to manage when you're in a gang. And so my favorite thing about Necromunda in its original incarnation was there's always stuff that happens before, during, and then after the game. And you manage all of those things. And so the story doesn't just start at the start of the game and end at the end of the game. It keeps going both sides. And so you always feel like there's interesting stuff happening all the time. Peter Davies said, you've said that the thing that attracts you to games is a model, but you seem to be writing a game which doesn't have models attached. Does that mean you think that pure rules can be successful? I think they can. I think Frostgrave has proven that. And I think that it actually proves my point that the thing that will attract me to the game is models. If I own models there's no games for, or if I want to use a collection of models I've built that don't have a game, that's where those rules come in. They just give me an excuse to put them down. Writing the game I wrote, the zombie game, was because I own tons of like modern... This is 2009. This is before Zombicide. This is before any of these miniature games about zombies existed. And it was before The Walking Dead was even on TV. Like, yes, that was actually a thing. I never expected The Walking Dead to be on TV. I think it was before I was probably during it when I was writing The Walking Dead comics, the first run of comics. But I owned collections of miniatures I didn't have a game for, and that was, to me, that's the joy of these games, is they give you an excuse to use miniatures you wouldn't otherwise have a home for. Sort of the islands of Misfits toys. Grandpa Bernal says, can't get the Malifaux prize kits without a henchman. Oh, really? Oh, I didn't know that. I thought the stores could still buy them, but they cost boku bucks. Well, that's weird. All right, so no special prizes, but you can still run events. Nothing stops you from running Malifaux events. Juan Jose de la Torre says, hey, Ash, greetings from Spain. Hey, Juan. Peter Davies says, oh, and keep being awesome. Well, I will. Thank you. James Robertson says, evening. Sorry, Rogerson, not Robertson. Michael W says, forgive this gets asked a lot, but do you ever plan on doing any Battletech or Alpha Strike videos? I'll be honest, I don't have anyone interested in doing them at the moment, so that's why. I would happily do an Alpha Strike video if someone came along with the models and was like, hey, you want to play Alpha Strike? Because I'll always say yes. If someone wants to play a game, I'll always say yes. But I don't own any, and I've never really been interested in BattleTech. I'll be honest. The other mech games that were after it basically soaked up that time for robots for me. So I always enjoyed things like Dubs Titanicus and Heavy Gear, and that was more the mech designs for me. I was never really into the mech designs for BattleTech, and the game was a bit too crunchy for me. Alpha Strike obviously is a lot more streamlined from what I've heard, so it's maybe more my speed. And I wouldn't bar it from ever happening. We just take someone with painted armies to come in and be like, hey, let's try it, and I'll teach you how to play. Aaron Siege says, hey, Ash. Nick says, how's it going, Ash? Aaron Streak says, South Korea, dang time zones. I don't need to sleep. Mike Feeling says, hey, look, I figured out the internet. Wow. I wonder if Mike's at work right now. He's either doing that or hanging out with his boy. Matt Grosvenor says, greetings from the Ukraine. Oh, from Kiev. Fantastic. Urza001 says, I use Hero Forge to make the leader for This Is Not a Test. That's awesome. That's awesome. There's stuff in there that you could make like a cool post-apocalyptic leader with, because like that shows that Hero Forge is growing. Because I think when it first started off, it was mostly just like fantasy D&D tropes that they had in there, but they're clearly expanding what you can do with it over time, and I think that just kind of like shows my point. Like it's just gonna keep growing, getting cooler to the point where you can't tell the difference between a Hero Forge miniature and like a professionally sculpted, being sold by some company miniature. Hydra66 says, I'm about 10 minutes behind as this is being streamed. Would you consider doing terrain creation videos? I don't do hobby videos because there's so many people out there, Hydra66, that do them and will do them better than I can. And I have so little time. The time I have that's free to make videos is it's 99% full at this point. Like doing this with you guys, actually I'm taking away from my painting time. And I actually haven't painted as much this year because I've started doing these videos. Because this is a whole afternoon where my kids are napping, where I'd normally be painting toy soldiers. And so I have to find a way to make the time to do those things. And the other half of that, which is my usual answer that everyone in the chat probably already knows, is that I don't tend to share the hobbying part of my hobby time, because it's like the only part of my hobby that I don't share now. It's the only part that's still real hobby for me. You know what I mean? Where I put on Netflix, I sit, I relax, I drink a cup of coffee, and I paint a bunch of toy soldiers, and I let my brain like decompress. I have to save some part of that, or this just becomes a full-on treadmill of a job, and I'm not enjoying any of it. I'm always at work. Imagine you could never go home from work, basically, and you're always at work. That's what it would turn into. There has to be some part of it for me that's still just purely hobby, because otherwise it would be 100% work, and I couldn't keep this up by myself. Like 7 days a week of content would just grind me down and destroy me, because it'd be 7 days a week of content plus doing all those other videos, because I wouldn't stop doing something else. I would just add it on top of what I'm already doing. Corey says, can't wait to see the evil Colonel Sanders in Dracula's America. Just need to find some undead chickens. It's quite possible. Paul Vidal says, Ash, do you think there's an oversaturation of miniature wargames and rule sets in the market right now? Fantasy, Rank and Flank, Kings of War, The Ninth Age, Rune Wars, A Song of Ice and Fire. I don't know what the third one is. MWG. I don't know what the third one is. It's not many wargaming. It's something like that, though. I think it's A Song of Ice and Fire miniature wargame is what you're talking about there. Well, yes and no. Kings of War has been really successful, I think, in keeping the rank and flank game alive. The Ninth Age doesn't sell anything. They don't sell a rulebook even, so it's hard for me to lump them in there. They're a great fan project, and people put a ton of hard work into doing it. If it becomes its own purely unique system and starts selling a rulebook and stuff, I think then maybe it's going to grow, because it's going to start ending up in on store shelves, and people are going to see it as like a real physical thing. It's not just an internet game anymore. And then A Song of Ice and Fire isn't out yet, and Rune Wars, I haven't seen anybody play. We have 2 copies of it. Owen got a copy at Adepticon, and I got given a copy by Chris from Woods of War from Adepticon, and like it's really component heavy, and it just hasn't grabbed me. Like, so I don't know. And A Song of Ice and Fire, I don't know if it's gonna grab me either. We'll see. The Kickstarter's about to end, and we'll see what happens when it happens. Dave Rockefeller, greetings from Germany. Tobek says, that's one fancy coffee mug. I love this coffee mug. This was, I got these at Starbucks that was below my house in Toronto. It's one of my condo. And I go there every morning for my coffee on my way to work. And this was like their Halloween special. It was like these weird alien mugs. And I wasn't supposed to put them in the dishwasher, but I have like 1,000 million times now. So this one has like a big crack in it that never has seemed to have gone all the way through because it still holds coffee. I'm just gonna keep putting it in the dishwasher until it explodes. It's for some reason still in one piece. PSA. I got given a what's it called? What are those water bottles called? They're the vacuum sealed ones that keep your drink cold for 24 hours. They're expensive. Something serve something bottles. Cool models. And I put mine in the dishwasher. I got in big trouble for it. Don't do that. You'll wreck the seal. I forgot it wasn't just a steel bottle. Because my daughter's a steel bottle that's insulated. And this one is insulated. And I forgot you're not supposed to do that because it breaks a vacuum seal. Yeah. If you got one of those bottles, don't put it in the dishwasher. You're getting big trouble. Mike says, hey Ash, why won't my son nap? Because he hates you. No, the real answer is, I don't know. Have you had him run around in circles for 4 or 5 hours? You do have a gym that you could just let him loose in, just like corner off a thing and just let him go in circles until he passes out. That's what I used to do with Cash, was I just put him in the backyard, and we had this great, it would accordion out. It was it almost looks like a pack and play, if you guys know what that is. Pack and play is like a crib you can fold out, but this was just a big hexagon, and you could put it in the backyard. He could run around inside of it. It had like a tent floor basically, so like nothing would get him from the grass. And he could just be outside, but basically be penned in. It was like a little animal enclosure for children that you could back up and take with you. And it was great because we could use it as a crib as well. I would just put blankets in the bottom and he'd sleep in it when we travel, because it actually packed up way smaller on pack and play. And I would just let him run around outside. Just put a shade on it and just like let him run around outside, get him some fresh air, and then he'd be out for like 3 hours, 4 hours. Miles is like 1.2. He's starting to walk. Just let him go, man. Just let him run himself to sleep. That's what I do. Aaron Streak says, everyone's freaking out on Facebook about Trump and Kim Jong-un. Here I am in South Korea, and all I want to know is if Kim Jong-un played 40K, what army would he use? I don't know. I don't know. I have no idea. Whichever the one was that best represented North Korea. I don't know. I don't know enough about I know enough about the history of North Korea, but I don't know enough about the current interior situation of North Korea to answer that question. I'm assuming the Tao. What else we got here? Phil says, I saw the Gabriel Angels in the flesh yesterday. It's not as bad as it looks in the pictures, but yeah, there's a lot of forehead going on. What's the name for that? Is it a 5-head? He's got a 5-head. It's like a like this. It's not just a 4-head. It's a 5-head. 6-head, 7-head. Something like that. He's got quite the derp face. The painted Gabriel makes it look more derpy than it is, says Chaotic Flanagan. Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying no. I'm just saying that like for $100, I gotta love him. And he's just a Space Marine captain with a derpy face at this point for me. Like, he doesn't do it. I'm not going to chance it. Urza001 says, you're playing more Frostgrave? This is not a test with J. Rowan. I'm actually midway through planning out my next thing with Jay. Jay and I are going to do Dracula's America, and we're going to do Scrappers. That's our next two like sort of indie games we're going to work on. And then next up we've got... the ulterior motives for Frostgrave. It's already filmed actually, so you guys will see that coming up soon. There'll be some Frostgrave in the works. And yeah, and so that's the plan. And then this is not a test. We'll probably do some stuff for when the next like sort of like bunch of snares and stuff, the little expansion that Joey's working on comes out, because he's done some photography for it right now. He's actually working on his next like book supplement. So what Jay and I usually do is we usually grab that and then work our way through the scenarios, and we'll do like a new little narrative. I think this is Jarked, X-Arced. X-Arced? Oh, X-Arced. It's a 40K thing. Yeah, I get it. Dad jokes. So you think the Necromunda will work? Well, yeah. I think so. Miso says, hey Ash, thanks for replying to my whatchamacallit comment, my Silver Tower comment. Of course, man. I try and, it's funny because I tend to, as videos go up, I tend to reply to like the first 10 comments or so, because I'm usually online still like dirtling around, posting the content places and making sure it's like aggregated, all the sites needs to be aggregated to. And then so I see like the first few comments that come in. So then, but then as time goes on, it's harder for me to keep track of them because there's always comments being posted at the same time on older videos, and there's close to 900 videos now on my YouTube channel, so you can imagine there's a lot of people go back to the catalog. There's a lot of comments every day, people watching stuff, so it gets to be hard to follow them all after a while. What's next? Film artist says Old Mortarian just looked like something airbrushed on a van. It's true. Old Mortarian looks like something that like that somebody who like rolled into like an airbrushing place was like, I really like if you could just do some Frank Frazetta stuff on the side of my van, and yes, I'm a candy salesman. Like something like that. BFD says, oh my gosh, that Magnus model, right? Yeah, so I'm catching up now to that segment in the chat because I'm scrolling through it. New kill team dies to Shadow War, dies to Necromunda. GW half-assing everything, needs to full-ass something. Will C says, I don't know about that, man. I think they're giving you lots of options. I can't complain if they're bringing stuff back and giving us new models for games that we already have like tons of expansions for from the past. Yeah, it looks like it's gonna be fun, man. I'm excited for it. Fahad Malala says, Ash, no Gen Con for you? No, I don't usually go to Gen Con. It's too big for me. Despite what it looks like, I'm actually kind of like exhausted by big conventions. I enjoy going to conventions and talking to people, but my natural Myers-Briggs tendency towards introversion means that like by the end of the day at a big convention, I'm just like wiped. I just want to be by myself. I can't do it. I can't do it for things that are that big. So Adepticon's about the right size of convention for me. Like it's enough stuff that's interesting. I can walk around, I can see new things, talk to people, catch up with all kinds of folks. But it's not Gen Con big where it's just like you're drowning in people. And I'm just like, oh, it's too much. I don't want to. So I don't usually go unless there's like a reason for me to go, like I was working it or, like in a booth or helping out or something like that. Like then I'd go because that's a job. And I'd bring all of my like insoles and gold bond and all the stuff that you need to survive a giant sweaty mess like Gen Con. But like Gen Con 50 is going to be so big. Like it's going to be such a huge event that as much as I think it's going to be fun, I think it's just too big for me. It's not the thing for me anymore. Mizumizu asks, Ash, have you ever played the video game PlayerUnknown Battlegrounds? No, I have not. Don't even know what that is. CJ Phoenix, wonder if he'll get even more sweet terrain with the new Munda. I don't know. I hope so. It'd be cool if we did. But honestly, like it seems like the regular studio is taking care of at least some of the gantry sort of like industrial terrain with Shadow War. So like it's they can even more time can be spent on gangs now by the Fortress Studio, special studio. Flying Baltimore says, hey Ash, so my girlfriend of 5 years left me on Saturday. Got any good jokes? For 5-year girlfriends leaving you? Nope. Enjoy all that free time to play video games you didn't have, I guess. Get some me time. Go to the spa. Get your nails did. I don't know. Get a massage. Mark Penfold says, Necromunda was my first foray into GW products. What was your first GW game? Love the channel. Keep it up. So my first my first game was Rogue Trader. That was my first like GW miniature game I ever owned. The first GW miniatures I ever owned were actually fantasy miniatures, and it was a plastic slidey clam pack of Empire Knights, and it was like a Reichsguard thing with like a hero and a wizard in it. And these are like C-series Empire Knights. The hero had like a griffin helmet and like a warhammer way up over his head. The wizard had like a staff and like these little like spectacles. It was super cool. And the Reichsguard Knights were just Reichsguard Knights with all with spears. And they had separate plastic horses. And that was like the first thing of miniatures I ever owned. Life of the Repo Man is always intense. Phil, Repo Man is always intense. It's true. It's an awesome movie. Matt Sears, great movie. David Rockefeller says, Ash, would you consider doing a Necromunda tutorial when the new game comes out? Yeah, I'll do a Let's Play. Of course I'll do a Let's Play. I'll do a follow-up, I guess, to the ongoing history of Wars in the Underhive, which was my Let's Play for Shadow War. I'll do another one for Necromunda coming back, which I'm jazzed about. Aaron Seach says, how do you think Last Days will stand up against games like The Walking Dead All at War? I think people are going to play Last Days with Walking Dead All at War models. That's the point of Last Days. The Walking Dead All at War is a great board miniature game hybrid, and it does a great job of capturing the characters from The Walking Dead. And there's an expansion that lets you tell your own story inside of it, but it's not you telling your own story. It's you playing a game set in the world of The Walking Dead. So the difference between a game like that and a game like mine is mine's about telling your own story. Mine's about telling the zombie apocalypse story you want to tell in whatever universe you want to tell it in. That's the joy of Osprey games typically, is they let you take a game and then tell the story you want to tell, as opposed to you just kind of sort of coming along for a ride in someone else's story, which is more what The Walking Dead's about. But if you have lots of Walking Dead All Out War models, you're like set to play Last Days. You just need to go pick up the rulebook and you'll be ready to rock and roll when it comes out. Pretty much everything you need. Anthony says, I want to start a gang of Arbites so badly. Will C says, Gorka Morka. Yeah, it's all going to be good. D&D proves that you don't need models to enjoy a game. Absolutely, Mark Boyer says. Phil Millar, no Arbites and new Necromunda, maybe Enforcers once the gangs are done. I mean, Enforcers, you could just paint up your Arbites and call them Enforcers, or vice versa, basically. It's not, they're not the actual law, they're like the paid security, but I think it's 6 of one, half dozen the other. I still think there needs to be an arbitrator, though. I hope. Corey says, who's coming to play Mercs? I've been waiting forever. My buddy Nathan's coming to play Mercs, and we actually played 2 games this weekend, and you'll see them in the upcoming weeks. TJ Vandermesh says, I missed the deck building aspect of 40k with 8th desperately trying to avoid combos, has lost the meta. It certainly makes for a friendlier game, but it takes the fun out of list building. I don't know if that's going to be the case. Although the chapter approved book that was spoiled today seems to be pushing it away from the ultimate wombo combo stuff, because they're pushing troops in, bringing back objective secured. They're taking scoring completely away from flyers, so they never score. It's a boots on the ground rule. So yeah, we'll see. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. Breaking Chain says, long time YouTube. I love your channel. Russell Higgins, Necromunda, and what rule set? I'm less impressed by GW releasing these. They've had these for many years and refused to support them. Why now? I'm leery this will be a one-time release. Well, it doesn't matter if it is a one-time release, to be honest with you. Like, none of these games that aren't 40k or Age of Sigmar are ever going to have the same level of support. Like, that's never, even back when Necromunda first came out, that wasn't the case. They would get like maybe quarterly support, quarterly releases for all those games, and they'd get articles in White Dwarf. There was never a time when there was like another main game, really. Like, your communities might have felt that way about certain games, but I don't think any game has ever done as a subsidiary to Warhammer or Warhammer 40k has ever been like the other primary game, apart from Lord of the Rings, which is licensed, and that's a whole other bailiwick. It's not something they came up with. It's something that they were doing for promotional reasons to really grow the company. So yeah, like I don't care if it comes and goes, because I'll go and I'll get it. I'll have what I want. I'll play with it whenever I want with other people to play it. You know, if people are excited about it, they're going to find a way to play it over time. I don't want to really. I don't want to try and have another third main game, because Games Workshop will never make it that, because it's never going to sell as many models as a war game will. These are fun diversions to keep people interested in the hobby, not big. They're not money-making schemes. You'll never make. They'll never pay the salaries of the people, even just running the retail stores, off of a game like Necromunda. Like, it won't even keep the lights on. You could buy the entire Necromunda range and have started one 40k army, basically, once it's all out. So that's, to them, that's not something that they're going to have a huge amount of wall space. It's going to be something that gets released, and it's cool, and it's fun, and people play it, and then they go back and they use those models in their 40k armies, or something. Nick says, will we see more Rumble Slam? Yeah, it's funny. I talked to the guys at TT, and they were, because I've been waiting because I wanted to show off new wrestlers, and they said they were sending me new wrestlers, and I haven't seen them yet, so I don't know when the next Rumble Slam installment will be, but hopefully we'll see some new wrestlers, and I can show you guys some more games. But I'm down with more Rumble Slam. I got lots of people excited to play it. It's just we need a bigger stable than just the starter set, really, to play more games, because you guys will be watching the same game over and over again. Odorous 2099 says, Rumor is pretty fun, but the rule set starts to fall apart when you get out of the starter set. I haven't played it, so I don't know. But it looked like a lot, even just playing with the starter set, like going on the table with all the control cards and stuff. So if it got a lot bigger, it feels like there'd be a lot to manage and a lot like sitting on the table. Mike Fielding says, August has turned into an annual ritual where I paint an entire orc army in 1 month. Except now it's 40k orcs. And we'll see those in a couple weeks. Phil Launch says, Blood Bowl's showing how great specialist games are at releasing and supporting games. Yeah, for sure. Blood Bowl's been consistent. But I mean, again, it's not a core game. It's, hey, look at this awesome game we have. Here's a box for every 2-3 months. And we'll just let people have fun with it. Let people have fun with Toy Soldiers. I really hesitate to worry about, you know, the stamp of officialdom on games. Like, is it in production? Is it out of production? If the game's good and you have all the stuff to play it, just play the game. Like, as far as I can tell, they're not making anything else for Warhammer Quest at this point, but I'm stoked to play Warhammer Quest next month. We're going to do the next 3 shards for Silver Tower. And if I can, I'm going to try and find a copy, if I can still find one, of the whatchamacallit, the Hammerhall thing. And then I'm really jazzed for this new organized play Age of Sigmar thing that's coming out too, the Shadespire stuff. So we'll see. Miso says, problem with Rumors, the rule set is good, but you need lots of miniatures for 1 unit of action. X-Wing was good, but as you didn't need that, you need lots of stuff for tactical flexibility. Fair enough. Russell again says, Phil, we've not gotten past the 18-month time frame yet. Well, who knows. Ben says, I agree, the previous lack of support makes me leery of these. Mike Fielding says again, oh jeez, I've skipped ahead a whole bunch once again. Swell bottles, that's what they're called. Swell bottles. That's what I put in the dishwasher. I'm such an idiot. BF dude says, drops on Commander, yes, no, later nerd. It looks cool. Like, I've got a little half a Sursa to play it. I just haven't had a chance to be honest with you. We have everything to do it. It's more finding opponents more than anything else. Corey says, my oldest kid doesn't nap anymore. Baby 3 will make it insane. Yeah, I forgot you're another kid, aren't you, Corey? That is going to be interesting. Because you've got one. But you know what's funny? Because your oldest is probably just a bit older than Kat is. I think Kat's going to be 4 in October. And even like where she's at, where she's almost 4, she kind of entertains herself. Like, she can play by herself, and you can give her like a puzzle or, you know, blocks or something to play with, and she just quietly entertain herself. Like, she doesn't need a whole bunch of stuff to do. Grandpa Glass says, Ben, how do you feel about the other side? I don't feel any way about it except confused, really. I don't necessarily have any desire to play another steampunk game myself. The models look okay. The big monsters are okay. The unit trays are okay. The game seems like it plays fast, but like, there hasn't been anything that's grabbed me. You know what I mean? That said, like, oh, I have to get this. This is the model I have to get. This is the thing I have to get. If the models were usable in Malifaux, I think that would be the thing that would be like, oh, cool, look, here's a thing for my... But the factions aren't really the same, and the models don't have any crossovers, so I'm sort of like, It doesn't... There's already lots of steampunk combat games in that scale out there, and if there was some cross-compatibility, it might interest me, but right now I'm just kind of... I'll watch it and see what happens, but not super excited about it at the moment. Matsu says, I hear you on Gen Con exhaustion. I always schedule something during that dumb cosplay parade. Dave Rockefeller, could you read a few more questions from the survey? Yeah, sure thing, man. I'll jump in. It's good timing, actually. Although the chat is going to get far away from me again, so I apologize. Let's go again. Ella says... any fully co-op 1 versus AI threat type miniature games out there? I got my Reaper Bones in, and I want to play a co-op Monster Hunt with my friends. Okay, so I can't think of tons, but Frostgrave has a couple of expansions. Like Dark Alchemy for Frostgrave is actually a 1 versus the computer Frost expansion. You could very easily play a lot of the Frostgrave missions solo if you just cut down the amount of models you use, because the monster rules for Frostgrave are really solid. That's actually something that has been on my brain is great one-player expansions, especially as a way to get people into campaign games. So, like, for instance, one of the problems with campaign games always is if you try and come in midway, the groups might be more experienced than you. You might start off as a lower power level. And so something that I've always enjoyed is one-player solo play missions that teach you the rules, but also could bring you up to speed to jump into a campaign. So I've been working on something like that for the last days, actually, and I think it's a really cool idea. So I can't think of any myself, but I do know there's a few missions there's a few solo missions for Frostgrave that are really good, and if you got Reaper Bones, then you're ready to rock and roll. So check out Dark Alchemy for Frostgrave. If you already have Frostgrave, you could even just mod any of those missions just to have NPCs. Just use the monster rules for everything. You know what I mean? Like, put a bunch of soldiers and stuff, or put a rabble wizard on the other side. And then the expansion for Lich Lord has a great campaign at the end where you're fighting a monster, you're fighting a big lich, and it's all solo play. So it's supposed to be cooperative, so you're just fighting the monsters as they are. But Frostgrave's are really good. If you're doing fantasy, Frostgrave is a good start for that. Pug-Faced Killer says, really contemplating starting a YouTube channel for this hobby we love. I'm wondering if you can give some pointers on starting out. What to do, avoid, good equipment you'd recommend, etc. I guess the biggest thing, there's 3 things. If you're going to start it, before you put anything, you even start the channel or putting it up online, or start publicizing it, have a month's content done. So whatever your schedule is, make a plan for when you're going to release stuff and how you're going to release it, and make a month's stuff ahead of time and have it all finished. And then you're not constantly chasing week to week and day to day content, and you're a little bit more flexible. So always have a backlog basically of stuff, or bank of stuff that you can lean back on when you're making things. That's the great thing about, I guess, what I've been doing is jumping between games as much as I do. It gives me a lot of flexibility to play different games, work on different projects, and not have to pile up one type of content forever. And then have a good space, have lots of light. So a quiet space, a space that has tons of light in it, because you can offset having a camera, a good camera, or like an expensive camera. All cameras are good, just if you use them right. And then read the manual for your camera and figure out what it can and can't do. Because if you treat your camera right, you can get all the same results on a $300 camera, for the most part, that you can get on a $3,000 camera. And if you have access to it, start with Macs. A Mac will come pre-installed. Any Mac computer will come pre-installed with iMovie, which is basically a stripped-out demo for Final Cut Pro, which is a great. You pay for it once and it gets updated forever. Video editing suite for Mac OS, and then you're off to the races. If you learn how to use iMovie, if you feel like upgrading, if you feel like you've gotten to the point where you want to upgrade to Final Cut Pro, it'll be a seamless transition. Everything's going to work the same way that you think it's going to work, and you should be good to go, good to rock and roll. And then before you decide you want to go and be excited about what you're doing, do the work beforehand to have some content made up, and just stay organized. Be relentless. Like don't skip a thing. Always have stuff coming out. Be on a schedule. Have stuff out when people expect it to be out. And that's my recommendation. I think I'm done. That was it. Oh wait, no, there's a few more that have come in. There's a few more questions that have come in from the mailbag as I've been talking. So let's go back here. Stormhouse Silver Linings Playbook asks, do you have any suggestions or tips for getting some hobby progress done while traveling abroad? I used to do a ton, and what I would do was, I don't know if I can show it to you, it's not here. I have these great little carrying cases that are made by Chessex. They were these little gray, they actually look like old tackle boxes, and they carry 14 miniatures, 14 man-sized, like 28mm miniatures in them. And then I would take as my liquid carry-on paints. And I would paint at night in hotel rooms. The one thing you're going to find that you might have to bring is a light bulb. Or if you can get away with it, I don't think you wouldn't want to, but one of those desk reading lights that have a clamp on them, where you can clamp it over top basically and hold the miniature underneath. An LED one. You can get laptop ones sometimes too. They're USB that'll just stick into your laptop and then put over top. Having something like that over top of where you're painting, you'll find that most lighting in hotel rooms, if you're staying abroad, is dim on purpose. It's not. Everything's kind of in like a 50 watt range. So getting good light to paint by can be hard. One of those little LED bendy arm lamps, get you painting, you'd be fine. That's what I used to do. That was my jam, and it's well worth investing in, because like, especially if you're traveling for work, it's really hard to have your hobbies travel with you. It's why I did a lot of backpacking and hiking when I was traveling for work, is because you always bring boots. You can bring boots, and I have a travel backpack that folds up into like a little. It folds in on itself, basically, a little pocket like that big. And a water bladder that I would just like wrap around it, basically like a little platypus water bladder. And that's what I go hiking with. I would just go buy snacks and stuff when I was out and throw that in my backpack and just go hiking with that. Because boots you can just throw in your bag, or you can wear them when you're traveling. And yeah, you can do the same thing with paint miniatures. If you can compress everything you need down into a small enough package, any hobby will travel, right? And miniatures are a good one because you don't feel like you're wasting your time. Mark Wallace asks, will you be attending Gen Con? And then you're really looking forward to it's being shown or released this year. Sadly, I won't. The one thing I'm super jazzed about is the Guild Ball Blacksmiths. They look really cool. I'd love to grab them, but obviously I'm not going, so it's not a big deal. Andrew Bourbon says, Bourbon, looks like. I'm just getting started with Infinity, and I picked up the Operation Ice Storm. I'm waiting on them to do military orders. What's next? So if you want to do military orders, you just need Joan. If you're doing an MO army that doesn't have Joan of Arc in it, just take her. Just always take her in every single one. She's great. She's inspiring. If you have the option of inspiring lieutenant, there's almost no reason not to. She's fantastic for leading a link. Her Hospitaller Doctor is another fantastic start. DeFurzin, Assault Hacker with a Spitfire is a fantastic start. The three of them can all be a link if you want, with insert other knights. Hospitaller Shot. The pain train basically for MO is DeFurzin, Joni, Hospitaller Doctor, and 2 Hospitaller Shotguns. And it'll fight its way through darn near anything in the game. It's got a tool for every job. It's got a doctor in it. It's got a hacker in it. It can fight up close. It can fight far away with the Spitfire and brawler range. It's just a great link, and it's super tough, and it has a doctor built in, and an extra order from Joni, obviously, so you can have an 11 order 10-man pool, and yeah, rock and roll. And then you get yourself some some order sergeants. The Spitfire MSV is a good one, which I think comes in the order sergeant box. The regular one is great because you can just be an FO or whatever. It can be TO, it can be all kinds of things. And just a couple Fusiliers from the Ice Storm box, and you're pretty much ready to rock and roll. Father Knight's cool, but like there's not a lot Father Knight can do that the Hospitallers can't. Josh says, "Hey Ash, with all the specialist games coming out through Forge's design team, do you think they might be overstretching themselves? There's still Heresy minis that haven't come out for years now." Yeah, I don't think they're. I think this is their new focus. The Heresy thing's had its huge explosion, and it seems to have just kind of cooled off a little bit, especially with the new 40k. I think they're going to take their time with Heresy for a little bit. It used to be Heresy was like the big bread and butter thing, but I think they can do just as well making plot. They can probably just make just as much money doing these like twice a year splash releases for specialist games as they could doing their resin launches for Forge rolled all through. So I don't know what it means, but you're right. The suit is only so big. We'll see what happens. I do know that I'm excited to get both. I can only paint things so fast. The Westerosi Undertakers Guild says, "Have you or will you play Carnival or Legends of the Fabled Realms?" I haven't, and I could. The guys at TT Combat bought Carnival, and they're pretty jazzed about it, so I've got no objection to trying it out. Legends of the Fabled Realms is the one from Foregrounds. Is that what we're talking about? The fantasy one? I check it out, but obviously these are two companies that are in the UK, and I'm here in North America, so having a ground presence, it might be more prevalent right now across the pond than it would be over here. So we don't see it in the shops, right, in North America, which means it's an internet thing until it suddenly lands in a store. Technocrat says, I think this is the last question. "Hey Ash, I'm a 40k newbie. I started with Shadow Armageddon. I just like skirmish games more. What are the most fun kill teams in your opinion? Have the box ones. Looking to buy more. I just don't know which." I think that the most Shadow War-y ones would be the Gene Stealer Cult. I love that you can just buy that Gene Stealer Cult box and basically have a gang out of a box. So fantastic modeling opportunities, and just cool looking in general. So that's my first. I think that's probably my favorite one, to be honest with you. It's the most Shadow. It feels the most like a Special Forces bad guy. A goon squad, basically, if you will, for an evil power. So there's them. I think that of course, the guard kill team, the Astra Militarum, which don't come in the box set, are a fun one. You can just buy yourself a guard box, or you could buy yourself even just the guard command squad boxes, because they get you more options typically of like special weapons and stuff like that. They're a great example of what you can do with that. And they're the most Shadow War-y. The other races are cool and stuff. The Town Pathfinders are pretty cool too. But like when I think of Special Forces teams, I don't necessarily think of Tyranid Warriors, right? The Gene Stealer Cult, on the other hand, I can see. I don't think of really Harlock ones. They seem too badass even for Shadow War, really. So those three I think would jump out at me as being great expansions for what you already have. TJ from South Africa says, "I see you're wearing a DJ Shadow shirt. What kind of music are you into? What music do you paint to?" I don't paint to music. I usually paint to movies because I need something that's a bit more stimulating, typically, than music. I work out to music, and I listen to music in the car a lot. And my kids love music. This was the best album of 1996. I'm going to date myself right now by wearing an album cover. It's a 21-year-old, whatchamacallit. It's an acoustic hip-hop album, really, from a guy from the Bay Area in California. And one of my favorite DJs. Him, Cut Chemist, and what's his name? He was half of Handsome Boy Modeling School. It was Prince Paul and Dan the Automator are like three of my favorite DJs from that era. They're like 90s, early 2000s DJs, and they still tour. But like that's a whole sound, and it's funny because you may have never heard Introducing, which is the album that this album covers from. But I guarantee that you've heard at least 2 or 3 songs from this album because they've been picked up by car commercials. They've been in movies. There's like a ton of stuff that because it's all acoustic because there's no lyrics really in this album. There's some samples and stuff like that of like stuff, but like there's no one actually singing over top of any of the music. I guarantee you guys, if you've ever watched TV or watched a movie, at some point a song from this album has been in it. You've just not known that it was a DJ Shadow song. And he's gotten a bunch of really good albums. His most recent albums haven't been in quite the same vein. He got really into the West Coast hip hop, like the Bay Area hip hop scene, which is cool. It's great music. It's just not the same kind of thing. So a lot of his fans, they had like mixed reactions to it, but he just toured. Actually, he was just here in Toronto recently, and I didn't get to go see him because I have kids now. I would have loved to have gone to that show. The last of those guys whose shows I went to saw, I went to see a Crack Chemist show with my buddy Owen in 2007. Yeah, it must have been 2007. It's last like oh no, I'm lying. I went to one in Memphis too. We went and saw Dan the Automator in Memphis. No, not Dan the Automator. We went and saw somebody else. Somebody like that. We went and saw... Oh, geez. It's a more modern band. I can't remember them now. I can't remember the names of them now. There's too many bands. But I listen to lots of music. It's funny because my taste is really eclectic. Everything from like hip-hop to like almost like... What's the name for it? Colonial rock? The stuff like bands like Clutch and Red Fang and... these like the Sword and stuff like that. So I like everything. I'm an audiophile. I love music in general. The way I love miniature games in general, like I don't pick favorites. if it grabs me, it grabs me. But yeah, I know this Shadow T-shirt I've had for many years. And unfortunately my Cut Chemist shirt, it's the old Cut Chemist symbol where it's a pair of scissors and like the beaker underneath, like fell off me years ago. I wore it too much and it disintegrated. But it was one of my favorites. Mark McGuire says, quick, date a Slaanesh Demon or marry an Ogre? And marry an Ogre, obviously. You would never have to pick things off tall shelves again. It'll all be over. And that's it for the stuff from the... From the... I hear running. Hello? No, I don't hear running. I hear the cat in the litter box, I guess. That's actually my daughter. I'll jump back to the chat here. Jay Larson says, Big Cons stress me out too. Yeah, they don't stress me out as much as they exhaust me. Like, I love talking to people, but the problem is that I am the Myers-Briggs definition of an introvert. I project energy and it just drains out of me, and I only recharge my batteries by being alone, which is probably why I enjoy solo sports so much. Like I enjoy weightlifting, and I enjoy hiking and backpacking and stuff where like it's you against you. It's not you against another team. That's usually the definition of solo sport. It's you against yourself. Those are my favorite sports because I can put earbuds in and just go. I don't put earbuds in when I hike. That's dangerous, but I can be inside my own head and recharge my batteries. Kamui Shiro says, "Hey Ash, do you think GW will make the Necromunda compatible with Shadow Wars?" Andy's already said that it's probably not going to be. It's going to be closer in line to whatchamacallit. It's been closer in line to the new 40k, and it's going to be alternating activations. It's going to be a totally new rule set for the Necromunda, which is cool. Daniel Penman says, "Would you ever consider the fan-based Inquisimunda? I'd make a truly interesting Inquisitor-style narrative. I love the John Blanche painterly style people adopt for said game." Yeah, no, I've played it before with friends. We just haven't done any videos on it. It's one of those things. So the thing with Inquisimunda is, it's one of those things where you need to get a group of people who are all similarly inspired and do it. And I think the biggest problem for us has been that there's so much happening right now in the world of Wargaming. It's been such a busy year already, and we're only in August, that having time for like personal projects I've had to make time basically to do my game, because having time for personal projects has been hard because it's just there's so much going on and so much things coming on. Misa says, "Please everyone now and then do a competitive War Machine list, maybe 75-point Legion of Steel versus Strakeoff 2. I know you like fun, but just sometimes Ash pretty please." I'm pretty sure that I've played some competitive lists. My whatchamacallit, that's Strakeoff 2. I have Strakeoff 2, but like my whatchamacallit list, my Hateful Eight list is pretty competitive. I played some pretty good games on that list. It's the difference is like competitive War Machine, to be honest, like you have to go all the way. You have to plan a clock. You'd want, like, you guys, competitive players wouldn't want to watch my War Machine games because I'm doing stuff with one hand. Like, I can't precisely, because I'm holding the camera with one hand. And, like, we're not going to have a third person hold the camera. I'm not going to pass it to my opponent because I'm going to hand them a $4,000 camera. You can't, it's hard, it's really hard to do the way that we do, or the way that I do battle reports, without doing a fixed camera, and then the other half of people that watch the games get bored and wander off. So it's, I mean, I'll do them every now and again, and you'll see me do, if I ever do, like, convention games, tournament games, typically, you'll see me do them then, but, like, it's not going to be all the time, that's for sure. Mark McGuire says, I think I didn't make it in time to hear your thoughts on the GW lawsuit. Just go back to the beginning. If you just swipe back on the thing, you can zoom over to the beginning, and then you can come back to live afterwards, and you can hear it. I did it in the first, I don't want to give more than 5 minutes. It's not worth more than 5 minutes, and shouldn't be worth more than 5 minutes. Torben says, I don't know if the rest of you, but the news about Psychic Necromunda is changing the rules has me psyched. What are they going to change about some new more time? Who knows? Rurid McKenzie says, Ash, where the heck is Clarence? Probably, I don't know, being Clarence. He's off doing things, man. It's funny because he's been by a couple times, but he's like, in summertime, he's busy. He's up being a ladies' man, touring sites and seeing his friends and stuff. He's got lots going on. Do you plan on doing any more epic bat reps? Stick of the Dump says, actually, I'm going to teach Owen how to play epic this week. That's my plan. We've been talking about it, and we just played some BFG last week, and I had such a good time doing it. I was talking about it. I said, you know what? You should learn how to play epic. I'm going to teach you epic. Where is... Darren Croman says, I work out of town. I bring a lamp with me everywhere with a 100-watt LED bulb. Yeah, perfect. You got it. So you're just talking again now about how to travel with your war games. Yeah, no, just bringing the little... I don't know how to describe them. I see them all the time in like travel stores. It's like a reading lamp basically to plug into your laptop, and it's a big U, and the top is just like a strip of LEDs, and it just goes right into your USB port in your laptop to power itself, and it looks perfect for painting. Dan Roberts says, James Miguel says, has anyone seen Spectrum Miniatures? What games can you use a criminal clown gang for? Like, what games can't you use a criminal clown gang for? All of them. My feeling says, I'll probably finish the last model of my car outside your studio for painting the Zork Army for 40k. I almost guarantee you will do that. Peter Egan says, I need to see Epic come back. Well, they're bringing back AT at W Satanicus, so that's going to be a thing. Rurid McKenzie says, Ash, have you ever listened to Terrassus or Two Steps from Hell? I can't say that I have, but I'll look them up. Darren Chapman says, the Orc Commandos are great for Shadow Armageddon. Yes, they are. Simon Jones says, yeah, I made it finally. Howdy, y'all. Measles says, nobody buys albums anymore. I miss the 90s. You're right. Albums are a thing. Let me get on my high horse for a second, or my high horse, and I'll tell you that albums are almost like a lost concept. I much prefer, and it's something that obviously iTunes has been like part of the death of, is being able to buy songs individually and pick and choose hits has meant that LPs and EPs, or like EPs now, are a lot more common than doing full album releases right away, because you can make as much money off an EP if it's a hit. If it's a single and it's a hit, you make most of your money off that anyway. You don't have to worry about doing a whole album and releasing a whole album. But there are some things that are just better listened to as an album. Like, there are certain albums that you have, if you start listening to the first song, you need to go all the way to the end. So Earth Rocker by Clutch is one of my favorite albums, and I always start at Earth Rocker, which is the first song, and end at the last song, and I listen to it continuously all the way through. Age of Winters by The Swords is another album that's like that. Introducing by DJ Shadow is another album like that, where you start track one and you listen all the way to the end. Dark Side of the Moon by Pink Floyd, all of these are like classic albums that they were designed to be albums, right? Especially like the concept album, which is a whole thing from the 70s. We've lost that. We've lost album writing as like a storytelling mechanic. Undertow by Tool. It's just an amazing like track of, or list of songs basically. So yeah, like just wish that was still a thing. Wish that hadn't been killed by the internet. What's next? Anthony Lee, any plans for more Bushido in the near future? Either start a new faction or fleshing out the factions you already have. I'm actually fleshing out my 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 Ito more with the Lords of Itsu and all samurai stuff right now, and the Ashigaru. And then I've got 2 more ninjas to finish for my Kage, and then I'm pretty much caught up, and I'll think about another faction because I'm pretty close to being done what I wanted to paint. Owen's been painting stuff, and I actually have a Bushido game coming out next week against Savage Wave where we fight the Onis, the big demon ogres. Jay Aiken says, I love to take a walk in some of the St. Catherine's trails to clear my head. Yeah, like, just walking. I think it's Nietzsche who said that most great ideas were conceived while walking. Torben Kasperg says, DJ Shadow and RJD2, I'm good forever. Throwing some Modest Mouse and Sisters of Mercy. Yeah, all good bands. All good bands. That first RJD2 album, if you can find this, PM me on my Facebook page. There is a version of Ghostwriter by RJD2 that was, I think it was in the EP, where there was like that dropped, and then there was like 4 different remixes of that song. And it had an overlay of like someone on like a type to voice like recorder rapping. But it was like one of those for deaf people where they're using their type to voice translator to make a phone call basically. But it was that like rapping over top of the music, and I can't find it anywhere. I had it I think I had it when I bought the EP, and I've since lost it, and I can't find it anywhere. I've tried like downloading it, bootlegging it, whatever. I cannot find this one specific mix of Ghostwriter, and it pisses me off because it's so good. And the Modest Mouse is just fantastic. Great band. What else we got? Misa says, you make some good points. I understand now, but your bat reps keep fun then? Audrey Ewing says, what faction is he going to do for the Epic Games? We're probably going to... Well, first things first, I'm going to teach Owen to play Epic with my armies. So I'm probably going to use... I'll loan him my guard, and I'll play with the Space Marines, just to let him get to grips with it. I have a box, and when I say a box, I mean like a shoebox, like full top to bottom of Tyranids for Epic that I never painted. Like plastics, metals, titans. There's like 20 dominatrixes in there. Just like a huge pile of like metal Epic stuff for Tyranids. And he's got an Epic fleet for Gothic, or a Tyranid fleet for Gothic. And so what we were thinking about doing was doing fleets to match Epic and just doing like a back and forth thing on Throwback Thursday where like we play an Epic game, or we play a Gothic game, and then we tie that with like a Planetary Invasion or something like that to an Epic game, and do like a little mini campaign where we just go back and forth, like just freeform, like nothing like super detailed or written or stuff like that, but just to play some games. And that would be fun. What else we got? Criminal Clowns for Last Days is a must. Yeah, it's entirely possible. Jakin says, the problem with albums is that people got lazy and stopped designing experiences. I still buy full albums, but the production design needs to be there. Yeah, it's true. It does. Robert Villeneuve says, most Pink Floyd albums need to be listed track by track. And yeah, Dark Side. Same with Wish You Were Here. It's true. Annals by Pink Floyd. Absolutely. Kansas' second album, Mask, is really good all the way through. Absolutely. Try Alice Cooper, but then again, he hasn't put anything out in a while. And yes, Tools, Lateralis, Modest Mouse, Moon, and Antarctic. All of these are fantastic albums. Yeah, caught up to the chat. Greg Cherry says, check out DJ Shadow on the podcast Song Exploder. I don't think I'm going to... Did he talk? It's funny because he gets really defensive, I find, about his old music versus his new music, like what he liked doing then and what he likes doing now. And I feel like that's a how do I put it? It sucks. You have to understand that people liked the way you sound, and you can't get mad that they don't necessarily. They're comparing what you're doing now to what you're doing then. I can understand for him though that it completely sucks to have something you're really passionate about that you're making now that's new, but because it's not the same thing you were doing 10 years ago, people criticize it just because it's different. And so I kind of have some empathy for him, but he seems to get hung up on that sometimes, which was kind of hard for him, I guess. What else we got here? Ben Austin says, I sort of wonder why Forge World hasn't made a dominatrix for 40k. It's funny, I think did Armorcast do one? I can't remember. Armorcast did they did like just literally 3-ups of some of the big Tyranid things, like the Trigon and the Hierodual. They made big basically. I can't remember if they did Dominatrix. I don't think they did, but it was neat because it was the Norn Queen sitting on the back of this just like huge, like lumbering guy with like a cannon on his back. It's funny that the design departures between the the Tyranid stuff from Forge World and the Tyranid stuff from the old Epic is pretty significant. It's at least as significant as the Primarchs have been. And the Dominatrix it's not really in the literature anymore either. So it might just be something that they're saving for like a rainy day when they want to do the big Titan, or it's just like they've moved away from the idea. We don't want this anymore in our thing, so we're just gonna take it out. It's not gonna be there anymore. Miso Miso says, Bullet Bishop Byron says, hey, just got here. I have 2 Wrath of Kings armies and still having trouble finding players in Minnesota. I thought Minnesota's where the Land of Lakes tournament was. I thought there was some big tournament in Minnesota for Wrath of Kings. Oh, no, you're saying Wrath of Kings. I'm thinking of Kings of War. Wrath of Kings. Yeah, I don't know, man. Wrath of Kings, I can't help you. I wish I could. I don't know. Misa Music Industry is also very top-heavy now. Nobody makes money unless you're at the top. That's true, but it's also... It's funny. The music industry is really top-heavy, but it's also super full of holes because YouTube and video streaming and stuff like that have made it much more accessible to people getting discovered. So it's actually... It's funny because there's almost like more stuff out there than there's ever been before, and people are getting discovered off of YouTube. But at the same time... That seems to be that there's very few people at the top that are just looking for what that next person's going to be. Like, everyone wants that next Justin Bieber. You know what I mean? That person's become like somebody's $1 billion like toy poodle, basically. God help us if none of those comes along. Hopefully they won't be Canadian. Nick says, "Are you on the Frozen North Facebook page?" I don't know what that is. Oh, you're talking about Wrath of Kings. That's what it probably was. Greg Cherry, no, it's about first track on Introducing. Introducing is like, it's so funny. The whole album is so good. That entire album is just front to back. I used to one of my fondest like memories actually from university was I remember I was super stressed because it was like near exams, and I had my first version of Introducing. I have the tape, like I still have it. I actually still have the cassette tape of Introducing, and I put it on my Walkman because I was still sporting a Walkman in university. And it's funny because you had a Walkman back then if you're into electronic music, because that's how you traded music back then, because this is like just the early days of MP3s and Napster and trading music. So mostly you had a Walkman because you would have somebody get you a tape of that show that had just happened, or you'd be bootlegging tapes of like albums back and forth between friends. And so you literally had a Walkman at this point because it was the easiest way to get new music, to like hand music to another person. So I had my copy of Introducing, which was original, which I'd probably copied for like 20 people, which I shouldn't be doing because I was a big no-no back then. That everybody did. And I just remember walking around downtown Toronto in the fall, and I listened to that entire album, and I think I just completely lost track of what I was doing because I just literally walked from like up on Bloor Street down through U of T all the way down to like Queens Quay, walked around Queens Quay, came up through like the Distillery District and like back up north. Just fall day, nice and cold outside, you know, like those perfect days to go for a long walk, and just I felt my mind like defragment listening to that album. It was great. Misa says, "You're a Justin Bieber lookalike." He should be so lucky. No, I don't think that's true. What else we got? Rob Zombie's albums tended to be the whole album instead of just a collection of songs. Absolutely, definitely true. In the 60s and 70s, if you're a music producer, you got a bunch of kids together, recorded some albums in 3 weeks and made loads of money. Simple. It's true. That's the way it used to be. Now it's about finding that next person. I like that we got to talking about music at this point. Ben Ossick says, "Oh, there's that other Tyranid Titan, the one that looks like a slug with 2 long arms." Well, there was the old Hierodule. The Hierodule and the Hierophant were just like little and big crabs, basically, in Epic. I'm trying to remember what else there was besides that in the Dominatrix, but they were the ones that were in Epic. Bullet Bishop Byron says, "No worries. Yay, 2 people found Wrath of King's friends." They're in Minneapolis, St. Paul. Greg Cherry says, "None about DJ." Okay, cool. I'll check that podcast out then, Greg. If it's just him talking technical stuff about recording his album, then I'm definitely check it out. And I think we're almost done. Misa says, "Oh, you mentioned Fighting Fantasy in your comment. Do you have any favorite Fighting Fantasy books?" Talisman of Death. Easy answer. Talisman of Death is absolutely my favorite Fighting Fantasy book. It had the coolest Frazetta-esque cover, with like Death literally holding a talisman, like with a scythe. It's my favorite probably concept one because it's such a it's actually almost like an Elric story. Like you're this spirit that comes back from the dead and goes on an adventure, and then it's this like whole like circle of life. It's a very dark story. And then my favorite probably all time, like besides that one, would be City of Thieves, which is Carry the City Pro Traps. And it's like weird, like masked ruler. It's like basically a pirate prince who lives in Port Blackson, like the edge of like the sea, and he takes over this town, and it's just another fantastic one. So yeah, great stuff, great books from like sort of like the canon stuff, because the Fighting Fantasy series went all over sci-fi, it was horror, House of Hell, which was like a Lovecraft story, like all kinds of cool stuff. Urza001 says, "Who's your favorite third-party miniature company? Hasselfree, Redbox, or Reaper?" That's a good question. Probably Hasselford, I'd say, just because I've always loved Kev's, just like the whimsy of Kev's sculpting. I do love Trey Manor's Redbox stuff, and actually you can buy the Redbox stuff on Hasselford's site now too. I think they're actually like friends. And he's done some like amazing fantasy miniatures. But I think Cav, just for like the length of time he's been in the industry, how prolific he's been at making stuff, and just like the catalog of work he has. He's worked on so many great games: Warzone, Void, GW games. I still have some. Oh no, I gave them to Nico actually. I had some Star Trek heavy infantry that he sculpted bajillions of years ago. He did all of like the Sedition Wars stuff in the early stuff for Mike McVeigh. Just like there's just so many great. He's had such a great career of like just making these really iconic miniatures. He sculpted for War Machine. He sculpted tons of stuff. A lot of the early Menos stuff was Kev White. All the Temple Flame Guard Spearmen are Kev White. The anything that's in like that cool like mask with like the Guerrilla cross. Those are all Kev miniatures. There's a bunch of great stuff. He's been so all over the industry and so prolific. I think it's fantastic. Yeah. Fantastic. Good stuff. Ben Grandpa Myrtle says, best fighting fantasy was Creature of Havoc. Really? Creature of Havoc? I mean, it's a good one. It's just no City of Thieves, man. Come on. I mean, the obvious answer is Warlock. And if you guys actually, if you can find it, you can probably still find it on eBay. There's a 25th anniversary edition of the Warlock of Firetop Mountain, which is in hardcover. And it's a great read simply because the last half of it, there's a beautiful introduction about like Livingston Jackson's early life, but the last half of it is almost like a prehistory of early Games Workshop, because those guys that founded Games Workshop. So it's a wonderful read just to understand like what the industry was like back when those books were being written, how one of them, Livingston, went on to become a video game designer by basically translating how he was writing these books, which were effectively video games. They were, because it was just it was a written video game that you were playing through and doing all the mechanical work for the computer does now, and started his company, and he's just this like almost like an oligarch now in the video game industry because he's been in it for so long, and he translated that over. It's a really, really neat read. So if you can find the 25th anniversary of Warlock of Firetop Mountain, buy it, because it's, if you're interested in the wargaming industry, it's weird that there's a choose your own adventure book that has a really interesting insight into it, but if you're interested in game design at all, check it out. It's a great read. Fantastic book. Ben says City of Thieves is too. It's always the game, man. It's always about the game with you. It's about the experience, not just the game. Greg says, maybe you covered it already, but just invested in Star Wars Armageddon. I was shocked to see it was Necromunda almost word for word. They had to know Necromunda was in the works, and their new rule system so strange. Apparently they didn't. There was an interview actually with one of them about Shadow War where they didn't realize that the main studio was going to do this Shadow War thing and basically completely on Necromunda, but it's given them the opportunity to not have to make all the bulkheads and buildings and stuff because it's been done by the main studio now. So it's an interesting. I think there was an interview transcript from it was either Warhammer Fest last year. It's whenever Shadow War came out. Right afterwards, there was some big event, and they talked to the designers about it, and it was just this, and it was two designers from both studios being like, "Yeah, we didn't know," and they're talking to like, "We had no idea. It was done completely in whatchamacallit, done completely in a vacuum," and it's just a happy coincidence. Basically, we get both. Ben also says, speaking of Necromunda, isn't the studio that made the Mordheim video game making a Necromunda game? Apparently they are, yeah. It's Necromunda Underhive Wars, I guess is the name for it. Holy moly, it's 3:30 already. We're rounding the bend and coming out. We haven't had one catastrophe, which is a complete like anomaly for this show. And we managed to get through the entire mailbag. There was actually quite a significant mailbag, which is good too this time around. And we got to talk about all kinds of topics. I'm pretty happy with this one. So anyway, hope you guys enjoyed that. We will have another piece of ash not next week. I'm on vacation. I'm in Grand Bend for a week with the family, camping on a beach. So yes, if I don't come back, I've been eaten by bears. But yeah, we won't be here for a live show on Monday. So I'll see you in 2 weeks back on YouTube. So stay tuned for that. All of my content's just going to be posted automatically. So the content stream won't be interrupted. I'll just schedule them. I'll just push live to my usual thing. So it'll show up my YouTube channel, Patreon, on my Facebook page. So just stay posted to those starting on Monday when I'm gone. But we'll see you for another piece of ash then on, what's the actual day of the week? It's going to be 2 weeks from today, which I should just be able to do the math on, because today is... Oh, you're the worst calendar. You're popping up when I don't want you to pop up. 21st is when we're missing. 28th. will be the next episode of A Piece of Ash. So we'll see for that one. Until then, big thanks to you guys watching on YouTube. Big thanks to all my patrons on Patreon. And for all you guys watching, I hope you enjoyed asking questions and getting your Piece of Ash in. So see you next time. Till then, Ash, have Wargaming.